way I'm going. There ain't got no way, I'm gonna make it without my Lord. No, ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord. No, ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord. No. There ain't got no way, I'm gonna make.
Seeking acceptance, and he documents the journey in his riveting memoir, The Gutter Gospel. The Road of Redemption. Smith's memoir begins during his childhood in South Dakota. He writes very engagingly about his experience with friends, family, and colleagues. This seemingly typical existence quickly slides into alcoholism, drug abuse, mental illness, and living most of his life terrified of his own shadows. His battles are many, often trying to talk to himself out of or into suicide attempts. His ability to describe them and his feelings is noteworthy. All he genuinely wanted in life was acceptance. And when he realized that, a perfect peace washed over him, so much so that he pulled his car over, got out, ran into the middle of the highway, and began stopping rush hour traffic to share the good news with everyone. As his cars zipped by, their drivers had looks of horror watching him spin into madness. Mark Twain said, "The two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you understand why." When one door closes, as he explains, he was kicked out of the military for drug abuse, only to return home where everyone hated him. He spent a lot of his time in psych wards, treatment centers, homeless shelters, and 3 days in padded cell where he experienced hell on earth. He had civil commitments placed on him in 2 states. He had to stand before multiple judges in handcuffs to beg for freedom, but received no mercy, left to rot in prison since no family would post his bond. Without further ado, let us welcome Michael as he shares this powerful, powerful story.
Hi, Mike. Welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing very good, Andy. Excuse me. I've been blessed, man, since we last talked. I've been
Uh-huh.
doing podcasts all around the globe, spending the good time spreading my message and getting it out there. So, yeah, I did wind up setting up my Instagram account. If you guys want to look me up there, it's Mike.Guttergospel
Uh-huh.
on Instagram. So you can message me there after the show if you'd like to, or during the show. And God has just been so good and so faithful to my mission in life right now is to spread the
Mm-hmm.
gospel, as we shared earlier, Andy. And had I imagined, after I was institutionalized for 6 weeks out in the state hospital, I'll never forget kind of crying out to God after I'd gone through everything that was just described in your intro for me, that there was this plaque on the wall that said, "You've been given this life because you're strong enough to live it." And
Wow.
that really kind of touched my heart. And I'll
Yes.
share this with your audience too. I don't believe I covered this the first time we talked, but many years ago, guys, I had this job and I was listening to this Christian broadcast, and there was two doctors that were talking back and forth about bipolar, which
Mm-hmm.
I do have.
Yeah.
And so the one gentleman said to the other, God, I have 7 children, and my second youngest has bipolar, but all my other children are very successful in their fields
Mm-hmm.
as a doctor, a lawyer, a professor. And he said, but you know what? This little guy that has bipolar, I think one day is going to outshine them all. And
Wow.
that really hung and encouraged me all throughout my dark times. And here I am now. I have a sister that's a doctor, and it's the same story in my life. Now I'm able to share the gospel all over the world with my testimony. And it's just been such a blessing to meet all these tremendous people, yourselves included. And I just can't say enough about the goodness of God and how He pulled me through all of this. So
Wow. Yeah.
it just so happens that tomorrow I'm going to a Bible study at 12 o'clock my time with the jail chaplain ministry in town. We're talking about what is a godly man. That's the
Hmm.
topic for discussion.
Yeah.
And then Thursday, I lead a men's group out of the Life Recovery Bible. And that's kind of my routine these days, in
Okay.
between the
Okay.
small groups and the podcasting. So, yeah, that's kind of getting everybody up to speed.
You did a pretty good
Thank
job there,
you.
Mike. Thank you so
Yeah,
much. So I'll let you
yeah.
have a chat with Gabriela for the next 5 minutes or so because we have been through some of your stuff before. So I'll let her take the first lead with the interview. Gabriela?
Hi, Mike. It's so great to have you on the platform this evening, and I hope that whatever you share would really bless someone who may be going through the same or had similar experiences. I went through your book last night, and I wanted to just kind of elaborate on something. I want you to kind of explain to us. You said you think you know what it is when you lose your job, home, and dignity, but the truth is, rock bottom isn't a single moment. It's a series of losses that strip you down to your most vulnerable self. Could you explain and elaborate what this moment was for you?
There's been several, Gabriella, to be honest with you, and I think that resonates all throughout the book. Is the homeless shelters. That was well. I should back up the psych units first, and the treatment centers, and then the homeless shelters. All of those were low points, and that was before I got civil commitments placed on me. First in Minnesota, then in North Dakota, and then the out shipped. Then I spent 10 days in the county jail where I was cycling severely with mania, and I was completely naked in my cell, covered head to toe in my own feces, and that's where my doctor found me. And so his deal was he was going to say, well, he had the final say and said Mike needs to be institutionalized now until he can get his medications straightened out. And I just felt abandoned by everybody. And when I was in the state institution, there was something in there that was really traumatic for me. They had me tied down in 4-point restraints and had to spend time in that and hearing people scream above my room, because they were going through the same type of stuff. And so once a week, they would put me in a paddy wagon in chains and have me go back to Fargo from Jamestown. That's about 100 miles straight west of here, the hospital is. And I would have to stand before judges and beg for my freedom, basically. And they rejected me 5 different times until finally the last week, then I was allowed out. So I think that answers your question pretty well. There were several low points and two suicide attempts. The first suicide attempt was right after my dad died when I was 15 years old and in a new town that I didn't have hardly any friends in. So that was a low point, a very low point. And then in 2004, I tried to hang myself as well. So when on that attempt, I heard a voice from, I believe it was God, saying, Mike, you still have a purpose in life. So
Hmm.
that stopped me in my tracks. So,
Wow.
and as I shared with you in my intro tonight, that had I seen it, looking back on my life now, guys, I can see God's hand in my life the entire time. And there's so many stories from the book I could share with you that are just heartfelt these days when I'm able to reflect on it, looking back now that I've turned 60 and have a lot more wisdom than I did all those years ago.
Wow.
Wow, thank you so much. That was so,
Wow. Wow. Wow.
so
Oof.
wow.
My
Yeah,
goodness. I'm Lord have mercy.
Andy. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
Michael, Looking at the book, thanks for sharing and being so vulnerable and being so open with us tonight. You
Mm,
know, it really takes a lot of
a lot.
strength
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do what you just did. You know,
Commend
and
him. I commend him.
we appreciate you for doing that. You know, and it's going to touch someone who is in our audience tonight and who may listen to it. If they don't listen tonight and they listen sometime during the week, it's going to bless someone's heart.
Yes. Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. Indeed.
Looking at the book, when the Gutter Gospel, could you kind of explain to us why did you call it the Gutter Gospel?
Yeah. In a nutshell, it's because I spent so many years in the gutter,
Oh,
through going
wow.
through all those things I just shared with you guys. And now I'm here to preach the gospel to everybody around the globe. So um, that's why I am very touched and blessed by God these days to be A, surviving all that, and B, being able to complete my book, not charge anything for it. And I should share that with your audience. If you go to theguttergospel.com, you can download the book. It's in a PDF for
Hmm.
free at
Yeah.
the bottom of my homepage on my website. So I would encourage people to go there. There's sample chapters on the website, and there's also links for help. I put the suicide hotline for veterans and for everybody else on there, the prayer line, uh, and a few other links. That's you'll see that where it says help for everyone on the website. So I wanted to get that out there as well. My mission these days is to not do anything for money, but to just do it to bless other people. So
Wow.
that's where I'm
Wow.
at. My publisher out in New York said, "Mike, you are nuts," and I said to him back because I wasn't going to charge anything for the book, and I said, calling me nuts is probably one of the best compliments anybody's ever paid me."
Wow. Oh my goodness. All
But I
right.
Right.
wanted to get it out there, and
Yes.
now that it's done, and I can laugh about it, cry about it on some of these podcasts, and share my story, and it just blesses people, and that's really what it's all about.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
True. And I have one more question before
Sure.
I hand
Sure. Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
In your book, you would have encountered an experience with God in your dreams. I think you call it the muddy penny.
Yeah.
And you know, I was looking at it and I was reading it last night. It was really, really interesting that God came to you in such a wonderful and powerful way. And that was one of the most striking moments I saw within the book. Can you walk us through, you know, how God used that dream to reveal your worth?
Yes, exactly right. That was well said, Gabrielle, and I'm really glad that you read the book because
Mhm.
that's actually one of my favorite chapters in the book.
Yeah.
It's called "Sea of Tears: The Parable of the Muddy Penny," and it talks about Jesus appearing to me in my dream one night and saying to me, and again, that's on the in the book, guys. It's on page 70 to 75 if you want to just skip down to that. But anyway, yeah, so God appeared to me in a dream, and I was looking out at this just beautiful, long, extended sea that I could not see the end of. After over to the right of the to my right was this beautiful waterfall with all these just brilliant colors, and then behind me, there was this big stack of muddy pennies. And I asked God, what is the meaning of this place? And he said, Mike, this is the Sea of Tears, and the waterfall represents all of the nations from all around the world crying out to God. And these tears are stored here in the Sea of Tears. And then I asked, what was the meaning of the muddy pennies behind me, this big mountain of them? And he said, go take one and come and lay it at my feet and wash one in the Sea of Tears, and until it shines like a brand new penny. So I did that, and then God said to me, Mike, this is the meaning of this place. You've been given a great gift with your life, and everybody on this uh, world, they value themselves, so many people do, as a filthy, muddy penny of no
Mm.
worth, That's why the suicide rates are what they are. And they just don't have a lot of self esteem or anything. So he said, "You washed this so brilliantly. Now just go out and touch one more person, and
Hmm.
they will take another penny from the pile and wash it in the sea of tears. And they will
Wow.
continue to do so until there are no more muddy pennies on the pile."
Oh boy. Oh boy.
So yeah, that's the Sea of Tears, the parable of the muddy penny. That's just a quick synopsis of it. But my publisher out in New York, I think, did a really good job on cleaning that up from what the dream was and getting it
Yes.
out there brilliantly. So yeah,
Yes, thank you for that,
Oh
Andy.
yeah. Well, thank you, Gabriella.
You're
So,
welcome.
Mike, since we spoke the last time, I sat thinking about your situation, and I saw on so many occasions where you could have just packed it up and said, you know what, that's it. I'm done. This is way too much for one man, one individual. But here we are today on this podcast, and you're still sharing that amazing testimony and that endearing story. What I want to get from you, Mike, and I'm sure the audience would appreciate as well, is when you felt as though everyone had forsaken you and family and friends who you thought would have been there for you rejected you as well, what was that emotional moment like for you? Because a lot of folks cannot define it, they cannot understand it. It's the one thing that they can't get over. It's like this hump in the middle of the road, and they see it so high that they can't climb over. But you got over it. What was that
right.
like for you, Mike? Help us to understand.
It was very difficult, guys, and I'll share this with you. And some forgive me if I get emotional during this answer,
There we
but
go.
this is an answer that or a question I should say that comes up quite often. And it was when I was in the state institution, crying out to God and going through all those experiences after I'd lost everything. I didn't have a penny to my name, and was was sitting there one day, and this doctor comes up to me with a great big stack of my medical files, and he says to me, "Mike, if no one's ever told you this before, let me be the first one to tell you how truly sorry I am that you had to go through all this stuff in your life." And that usually gets me in tears because
Mm,
at the time I did just break down and you know couldn't really comprehend it all. But you know, after the state institution, I was brought back and put in a homeless shelter. I didn't share this with you, Andy and Gabrielle. I'm sure may have read this in the book, but what happened was this is 2019, the year in review. That's the chapter, and talks about everything I just shared with you. But then the road to redemption started this way, guys. Was that I was in the homeless shelter. There was veterans in that upstairs, and then there were criminals downstairs, and we would eat all our meals together. And I was laying on my in my room on my bunk and just staring at the ceiling tiles. And long story short, uh, the lady comes in and says, "Mike, you got mail." So I open it up, and there was two great big checks in there for back pay from the federal government. So I got 100% service connection disability,
hmm.
which means these days I get almost $4,000 a month tax free. So
Okay.
I went from having nothing to having now my bills taken care of and stuff. So that was how it all kind of flipped around. But I did have to go through everything that I was documenting in the book before that blessing just finally came my way. And I wanted to get this out there as well tonight is that I was going to start the podcasting thing a little bit before the first of the year, but I had lost my best friend to cancer. His name was Brad Witzke, and I was taking Brad to his radiation appointments in December. He passed away December 14th, to be
Hmm.
exact, and he was just a great man that I had met through the jail chaplain ministry after I got out of the homelessness and all the other stuff. So,
Hmm.
but Brad turned to me and he goes, "Mike, do you think I'm going to die soon?" After one of his last radiation treatments. And I said, "Well, Brad, look at it this way. Look at how much you're going to leave everybody behind to deal with in this world. which is what I shared with you guys a minute ago. And I said, you're going to be in such a better place in eternity where you're not going to have to suffer anymore. You're not going to have the cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just encouraging Brad. And about 2 weeks later, he passed away.
Mm.
And so I wanted to honor his memory on all these podcasts. So I thank you guys for giving me that time tonight. But
Yeah.
yeah, he was a strong believer. So it was a tough loss. So I did start the podcasting thing after the first of the year. That's when I met you, Andy, and you were one of the first persons to reach out to me. So I appreciate that greatly.
Welcome. And we
Yes,
appreciate
Andy.
you, Mike. Thank you so much. Wow. I just want to read a little bit of what I had looked at as well. And you're going to just comment on it after. Of course, these words will be quite familiar with you. I just want to read this part because it stood out to me. I took off running down the street in broad daylight and in my underwear. I
Yeah.
ran as fast as I could. The farther away I got from home, the voices quieted. Several blocks away, I came to my right mind. I saw one or two cars drive by as they looked intently and pointed at me. I suddenly realized that I was in my underwear in broad daylight, far from home. I had to go back home. But what would I face there? I arrived to a quiet house, but by this time I was covered in sweat and terrified out of my mind. I grabbed the gun and hid it in the garage, and then I sat just inside waiting, but I did not know for what. Wow.
Yeah.
Take us.
Andy, that was my first manic break.
Uh huh.
And Uh, my dad, like I shared earlier, he passed away in 1980 when I was 15. So now I'm 8 years beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm into my early 20s, and this is post military after I'd been kicked out of there.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I wasn't on anything. I had a day off from work, and I was just, it just kind of came to me. That's the first in the sample chapters on my
Mm-hmm.
website, guys, if you want to
Yeah.
get the reference there. But yeah, it was terrifying. I remember that I was into smoking marijuana still back then, but I wasn't on anything that particular day. But after I was sitting there in my sweat and still just scared out of my mind, a guy stopped by that used to party with me, and he goes, "Okay, Mike, do you want to smoke some weed?" And I said, "There's no way I'm going to do that. I think I just need to get to church because of what happened to me."
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of started me down the spiritual journey. I accepted Christ less than a year later, and then the book just kind of unfolds from there, chapter by chapter. So, uh, and then in 1999, so we're forwarding 11 years beyond that. That's what Gabrielle had read about the traffic, stopping
Mm-hmm.
traffic,
Yeah.
winding up in a padded cell and in a straitjacket, and experiencing what it would be like if you actually did go to hell. That
Wow.
torment, the heat, the demonic voices, the accusations. And I'll never forget that when I was starting to come out of that, uh, there was this nurse, and she said, "Mike, my name is Amy." So I couldn't talk, and I was just terrified out of my mind. So she comes into my room like 3 days later, I think it was, and said, "Mike, I just wanted to share something with you. When you were coming out of that manic break, your eyes were as big as saucers. You look like a scared, cornered animal."
Wow.
And that was her comment. So
Mm.
I that was just another, you know, chapter in my life story.
Wow. Okay, great, wonderful. So next, we're gonna give Mike a break now. It is 24 minutes past top of the hour of 7 p.m. And we just want to run the second promo video, and after that, we're gonna take the thought of the week. So we're just gonna give Mike a little breather for now, and we're gonna run that second promo video and come back with the thought for the week. So stand by, folks.
Life has a way of throwing challenges at us, whether it's emotional struggles, difficult decisions, or simply feeling stuck. But what if there was a place where you could find not just solutions, but also the tools to create a brighter, more confident future? That's what Gabriella's Double Impact Solutions is here for. Our tagline is mentoring minds, empowering lives. It's more than just words, it's the heart of what we do. We combine counseling to help you heal and process life difficulties with mentorship that offers practical guidance for your personal growth and future success. It's about building strength for today and clarity for tomorrow. We also understand that everyone's journey is different. That's why we offer both secular counseling and faith based counseling grounded in Christian principles for those who desire a spiritual foundation in their healing process. No matter your preference, we meet you where you are. At Gabriella's Double Impact Solutions, mental health is our priority because we know it's the foundation for everything else. Whether you're navigating personal challenges, seeking direction in your career, or striving to build emotional resilience, we are here to help you strive. Solutions, healing, and a future filled with purpose. That's what you'll find at Gabriella's Double Impact Solutions. Visit us today at www.gabriellasdoubleimpact.com to start your journey because we are mentoring minds, empowering lives. Let's grow together.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Dex. So now let's look at the thought of the week, folks. It says, when we worship God, it is not because of what he does, but it is because of who he is. Let me repeat that. When we worship God, it is not because of what he does, but it is because of who he is. And that is so apt and appropriate as we have our guest Mike Smith on with us with regards to his story and his amazing, I mean, absolutely amazing experience that he's had to this point where he can share with us on breaking out of depression. This episode entitled God's Intervention and Plan Amid the Darkness with Mike Smith. So, Gabriella, back to you as we continue this amazing episode.
Andy, yes. Whew, we need to interview. We need to have a longer interview, but it's so much that we could learn from Mike tonight.
Right, that's right. That's
I'm really touched by his story. So with that being said, throughout your book, and I am going towards the book. Forgive me because the book basically is your life story.
yes.
And it is for us to get that clarity of what you would have endured and how you overcame. And throughout the book, you're seeing the doors of hope. That is the kind of message that you are portraying. That even that the gospel is not just for the good.
Are you guys there?
I'm here. I
Uh,
wonder what's
I think
happening,
Gabrielle
Gabriella.
was, yeah, I think
Um,
she kind of got lost here a second.
oh my.
Okay, hearing
Okay,
me
there she.
now.
Yeah. You're back. Okay, great.
Awesome. So
Yeah,
I'll start over.
yeah.
So Mike, we wanted to just talk about the book a little more, and throughout the book, the doors of grace is something that is being eminent and portrayed. That the gospel is not just for the good, but it's for the gutter. And it flips the script on what people believe and what people believe about God and His love and who deserves love. Can you take us back to the moment in your life when you realized the gospel wasn't just for church folks, but it was actually reaching for you right in your lowest, messiest time?
Yeah, it was actually just after what. Oh, my puppy just came up here. Say hello, Odie. There he is. I don't know if he's caught him, but I have three dogs. Sorry, guys. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, to answer your question, Gabriella, it was right after that situation that we were just discussing before the break with Andy's question back in 1988. That's when I accepted Christ. It was September 8th of 1988 to be exact. And that episode that I was writing about took place that same summer on July 31st. I'll never forget the date because it happened to be one of my sister's birthdays. But anyway, I wanted to share this before we get too far into the rest of it. And this is just something that has happened since the last time we spoke with Andy. I am booking myself to go to the ICVM Storytellers Conference, and that is a faith-based um, annual conference for all of the producers and directors and investors all across the globe.
Hmm.
That you can pitch your true life story to them and see if your book can then be turned into a faith-based movie. So
Okay. Okay.
that's
Wow.
October 1st through the 4th. So I'm praying about that, and so far it's full steam ahead. So wanted to get that out there, guys.
Hmm.
That's something that a lot of people are in prayer about, so myself included.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an interesting time back then, Gabriella. To get back to your question, because not only did I just become a believer, but then shortly after that, I met my wife of 36 years that
Wow.
had to live through our anniversary will be 36 years next month.
Hmm.
But she even, God bless her for putting up with me through all those dark times.
Wow.
But,
Wow.
we're just now kind of working through all of that stuff and trying to have as close of a relationship these days as we can. God's healing that over time, so wanted to put that in there too. So but yes, there was so many dark times, and like Andy asked me, you actually survived it all and came through it all. And to answer Gabriella's question about the gutter, you're exactly right. That's God came for the sinners. He didn't come to, he debated with the Pharisees and stuff because they were self-righteous and
Yeah.
had that attitude about knowing everything, and they were actually accusing Christ of all things that he, could always answer and teach him in parables to the best that he could. So, but yeah, the gospel's for everybody. I just got done watching a classic Billy Graham crusade this afternoon, and he was talking about how Christ and God the Father and the Holy Spirit are for everybody, every
Mm.
man, every woman of every race and gender around the world. It's like, it's just, that's what the message of mine is these days to everybody, is that God loves them unconditionally. He just wants a relationship with them. And, so that kind of brings everybody up to speed with good old Mike Smith on in the that we have here tonight. But
Yes.
yeah, it's been a very interesting journey. Let's say that. I'm always quoted in these podcasts as saying it took me 30 years to write the book and 60 years to live it. I
Wow.
just turned 60, so it definitely wasn't a get rich quick scheme, that's for sure.
Yes.
So
Wow.
very beginning for the book. So especially not only that, but like I mentioned earlier, the publishers were not happy that I'm giving it away for
Yeah, for
free,
free. Yeah.
but so be it.
Awesome. And you were labeled so many things. You were labeled addict, prisoner, mentally ill. How did these labels affect your identity? And how did God begin to strip them off?
Yeah, that's a really good
Good
question.
question. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's because, having gone through all of those trials, I was called so many different things, and with the labels on there, and it was stigmatism was, he's nuts, he's this, he's that, he's an alcoholic, he's homeless, and it's like I felt so low during all those times that it was just such a struggle, guys, to be honest with you. It really was. But God had his hand on me. I'll share this story with you. I put this in the book that I think will bless people. That when I was being kicked out of the Air Force, there was this little old lady that came up to me with the Bible track as I was out there in the hot Texas sun, waxing ambulances, is what they were having me do to humiliate me before they kicked me out the gate. And she came up to me and handed me a Bible track. and I'll never forget this. She said, um, I said, I can't accept this because I'm not a Christian. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a drug addict. And in about a week or two, they're going to kick me out of here for good because of my I'm being kicked out. So she said, Mike, God loves sinners and he died for sinners.
Wow.
So there was that episode and so many more like it. Now that I have all of that behind me, you can read about that in the throughout the book where I mentioned these run-ins that I had with believers that were always there for me, and I was rejecting it all the time. So it wasn't until that very manic episode in '88 that really got me focused on the church. And we went to a fundamentalist church, and then I write about this in the book as well. I played the role of Satan in our Easter's coming up. It was the Passion play at our church, and they would have like thousands of people in the church every night for 4 nights each year. So for 3 years, I played the role of Satan in the Passion play. I guess I got typecast, but but that
Wow.
was an interesting experience as well. The music director of the church played the role of Jesus. So, but yeah, I look back on those times as being very fond memories.
Wow.
Wow.
So
And
Gabriela, we have a comment that I must absolutely
no
read for
problem.
Mike as
Yes.
well. Wesley Rand says, pleasant evening, Brother Andy, Gabriela, Brother Dexter, and especially your guest, Mike. If I can say, Mike, you have been to hell and back. To God be the glory. You have survived to tell the story. May God continue to strengthen and keep you so you can continue to be a blessing to others. May God continue to bless you and your family. Stay strong, bro.
I
Absolutely
love,
wonderful. Thank you,
I love
Wesley.
that, Wesley. Yeah, thank you, Wesley. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Gabriela.
Yes, thank you. And Michael, after so much failure that has happened throughout your life, how did you stop seeking acceptance? Because throughout the book, you did say that you were trying to seek acceptance from people. But how do you finally receive acceptance from the Father rather than, looking for it in people?
I think it's because the whole system let me down, and I was left with. At the end, I was left with God. There was nobody else there in all those dark holes,
Yeah.
including my wife, which is what we were just talking about. How strained that relationship became, and everything else. So, um, yeah, it was not a easy journey by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, I just look at it like that story I shared with you guys earlier about the Christian psychiatrist with his young boy that's bipolar, and how now that little guy is out there, in my case, reaching the entire globe with uh, with the gospel. And I've been on every continent now, spreading the gospel. So it's uh, it's such a blessing. Had I been told when I was in all those places, one day, Mike, you're going to be able to share the gospel with the entire world, having gone through all this, I would have just laughed at God.
Wow,
Yes.
wow, wow.
But yeah, I came out the other side and I'm doing fine now. So that's all the glory to God for that.
Bless the Lord for that.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen. Indeed. Wow. Mike, you have uh, an amazing connection to reality with regards to your story, the way it has progressed throughout the book and so on, and the willingness that you have shown and the vulnerability to share it with so many people. What advice would you give to folks who may find themselves in a similar situation and need somebody to tell them, hey, there's a better way. This does not have to be the end of it all for you. You can find hope still in life. What would you say to them, Mike?
Yeah, there's a few things I get asked that question, so thank you for bringing that up, Andy. And I
Yeah.
always say here's my approach to it, guys, is that number one, that's why I felt the need that I put those links up on the site for free that are access to, first off, the suicide prevention lines, because you first need to be talked out of suicide, and then you need to get spiritual help in place of those bad thoughts. You need to get involved in a small group you trust. And what I wanted to share with your audience as well is that this is why we're setting up that Instagram account specifically so that I can answer those questions individually, one on one. I just looked on my website. It has a back office to it, obviously, where I can keep track of how many people have visited it. And it was over 1,600 just within the last couple weeks.
Wow.
So the message is definitely getting out there, especially because they can see I'm really sincere about, like I mentioned, sometimes I break down when I'm sharing my testimony, and other times they can they can just kind of step back and say, well, this guy's out there with his story that is not, he's not asking for anything in return. He's just trying to actually help people. So I would say reach out to me individually if you feel you can't trust anybody. But also, if that's not something you're comfortable with, try and get involved in a small group. And that's what I do with all of my free time when I'm not podcasting. I get involved with, like I mentioned earlier, the jail chaplains in town. Those are great guys. And the Life Recovery Bible group that I'm really involved in. We've been leading it. I have past almost a year now, talking about the love of God when it comes to addictions. The thing I like about the Life Recovery Bible, especially, is because it really breaks that down and has like the commentary and the footnotes about God's unfailing love with people that have survived or are struggling with addictions, specifically of any kind. It doesn't have to be what I went through, but that speaks to everybody. Ever since the beginning of mankind, starting with Adam, there's been nobody without sin. So if we're to be honest in those small groups, then that's what it's really all about.
Wow. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for sharing. We appreciate that and we appreciate you. So, Bernadine S. Woods has a comment. I would let Gabriella read it. You know
I
why?
like the puppy. I like that puppy. I had one
I
just
was
like
afraid
it.
of this. Oh my. Good night, everyone. My God give you strength to go through all these things. So now you are like gold, because gold doesn't look so refined until it has gone through the process. May God continue to use you like Paul and all the disciples. Keep the faith, finish strong, because God is able to do keep you past, present, and future. Stay in God, because He will never leave you nor forsake you.
Yes, that. Thank you so much. Who was that? Bernadine.
Yes, that's my
Bernadine.
mom.
Oh, that's
Always
your mom.
supportive.
Oh,
Yes.
what a sweetheart. Thank you so
Yes.
much, Bernadine.
I love
Yeah,
it.
I
I
love
love
the
it.
puppy. I love the
Ye-
puppy. So, yeah. What's the puppy's name, Gabriella?
What's the?
The puppy's name. There was a picture of a puppy in the corner.
Oh, that's just a picture. That's not our dog.
Oh, she's just using
Yes.
that on her profile.
She's just using that. Yes.
Okay, great, great.
Okay.
Wonderful. Mike, is there another book in the making that you're looking at, or is this the one and all for you for now?
That's the one and all, guys. That's my true life story, and I'm sticking to it. And
Yeah.
my
It's a
goal
lot
now
in
is
that book.
my goal now is, like I mentioned, that storytellers conference. They have this thing there that they call popcorn night, which is 5 minutes for you to stand in front of all these producers and directors to pitch your story and to see whether or not it has the merit to actually get turned into a movie. So Angel Studios, that produces the Chosen series, is going to be down there, and I've
Hmm.
approached Angel Studios in the past, but they don't ever accept unsolicited pitches outside of the conference. So you have to go to the conference if you want to get in front of those guys. So
Oh,
that's why I'm going down that path.
okay. Okay. So we have Dr. Anthony Charles saying salutations to all. Uh, welcome, sir. Thank you for being a supporter. And we hope that Mike's story, Mike's account has been really inspiring and invigorating in so many different ways. In terms of the experience that you have had before several audiences, and you're saying that it is worldwide now, when you think about speaking before a live audience, Mike, and if you could recall the last time you would have spoke to a live audience and people actually hear your story coming from you, what kind of expressions of emotions, what kind of feedback did you get from them?
I get a lot of good feedback. I should mention this. I have a 93-year-old mother-in-law, and she goes through all my
Wow.
podcasts with a fine tooth comb. So she's
Wow.
she's my little prayer warrior. She
Oh.
lives in a nursing home about yeah, she's a very strong believer, and she's been my support system for all of my life and
Yeah.
ever since I got married. So but yeah, so she's loving to hear these podcasts. She's going to love this one because it's all dealing with faith and, so but yeah, I kind of losing my train of thought. What was the question?
The feedback from the audience when you share your
Oh yeah,
story live, that
yeah,
emotional connection.
right. Yeah. Well, I've had quite a few of those, and it's a blessing because like I said earlier, I laugh about it, I cry about it with guys, and I'll just share this with you. I did one here about a week or two ago with this guy that was in the Navy for 22 years. His name is Dave, I think it was. But anyway, he uh, he was getting emotional during it because of me sharing the stuff about how I wound up in jail in my own feces, and he said, "You know what, Mike? I got to take a minute and pause here because this is getting to me." And because I had a father-in-law like that, where people gave up on him and
Mm.
they wouldn't allow him around their children anymore. And he said it was just so unfair
Yeah.
because it was like there's all these stigmas, attached to people that have bipolar, or they think that maybe those people just need to be institutionalized permanently. I had a grandma that actually happened to in my life. I didn't share that with you yet, but that's true
Mm.
as well. So there has just always been that basis of mental illness. My dad tried. I found out later in life that my dad tried to take his own life when I was only 2 years old.
Wow.
So they wound up elect what's the term, um, they used the electroshock or whatever on him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was two, so I was obviously too young to remember that, but it just got passed down to generations upon generations, as it says in the Bible. So that's unfortunate, but that you have to actually go in that path in life, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was just so unbelievable coming out of all of it to share the gospel. And I like that comment about the gold of being refined. That's kind of
Yes.
how I view
Yeah.
my life these days, is that I was refined in the fire of hell to preach the gospel. If there's a
Wow.
message I'd like anybody to hear and get really a good grasp on, please go to that second sample chapter so you can read what that episode was actually like. My wife said my eyes rolled back in the back of my head,
Hmm.
and I was put in a straitjacket and in an ambulance to take me to the padded cell for 3 straight days right before Thanksgiving in 1999. And so I didn't have a Thanksgiving that year. Instead, I had torment.
Wow. Wow. Okay, great. Wonderful. Wonderful. Guys, if you have any questions from the audience, we would give you the opportunity now to ask Mike a question or two. If you have any in the audience, we are open for questions. We're always open for questions and comments, but I want to take this special time to invite questions from the audience. If you have anything you want to ask of Mike now, at this time, you can so do. And in the meantime, I'd like Dex to run again the thought of the week for a second time while you ponder on your questions, guys. Okay, so we have the thought of the week. It says, when we worship God, it is not because of what He does, but it is because of who He is. And I think that is so instructional, so instrumental in us understanding the kind of relationship that God wants us to have with Him. It is not about what God can do, it is about who He is, the very characteristic of God as it is represented in our lives. Yeah, wonderful. So, Gabriella,
So, Mike, I just want to talk about a little bit about the freedom that you would have experienced now walking in freedom. You know, sometimes we often think that now that you have accepted Christ and you now walk in His freedom, sometimes you may not. You sometimes they think that you wouldn't still struggle, right? But now that you walk in freedom now, without, are you still being haunted by things of the past? And if you are, what are some scriptures or what are some truths that hold you or anchor you to take you throughout life?
I love Psalms 40, guys. If you read it,
mm,
it
yeah,
talks about being pulled out of the miry pit and being put on a firm foundation.
yeah,
So that is one of my favorites. And it just so happens after we wrap up with my study on love in my men's recovery group on Thursday nights, we're going to be reading through the Gospel of John. And I did this podcast here about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and the name of it was something about um, my bad religion or something like that. That was the title of the podcast. And the gentleman that was hosting it asked me, for the young people out there struggling with everything they are today, what would you point them to in the Bible just to get started? Where would you direct them? And I said that I would direct them. They can't go wrong by studying the whole Gospel of John. And the guy that founded the group that we go to on Thursday nights, that's how he broke through his addiction patterns as well, was to just read the Gospel of John over and over again.
hmm,
So Psalms 40 is a great one. Well, there's so many in the Bible, go through all of Proverbs, the Psalms, and then I don't read a whole lot out of the Old Testament, to be real honest with you. I mean, I know some stories of it, but I get more out of my New Testament reading when Jesus comes on the scene. So, but especially the whole Gospel of John.
yeah. Okay. Wow.
Okay, awesome. And throughout your life, you know, you would have endured so much because stemming from even childhood coming up, you know, persons would have neglected you, forsake you, friends, family. How did God teach you about forgiveness during those moments now, and how did you forgive yourself? Did you struggle with it, and what advice would you give to others who may have to go through the same path?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a lot of that I do struggle with, guys, just to be totally honest with you, because it
Yeah.
was such intense experience all throughout my life, starting in childhood and then going through my entire adult life. So, um, after the state institution and stuff was when I really started to kind of look back on it all. And after I got my disability checks, I was kind of just had a lot of time to reflect on it, but at the same time, I was still having a hard time forgiving myself and forgiving other people that because when you go through the book, it talks about everything I was sharing before our first break tonight about how everybody rejected me. The even society rejected me.
Mm.
So they took my freedoms away,
Yes.
every way they could. So it's hard to forgive how that system failed me and so many others. And I don't know if you can see this on my shirt, but I have all these custom shirts that I make out in. They make them in Virginia out at Custom Ink out there, and it says 22 veterans per day. That's the number of veterans that commit suicide every day because they come out of
Wow.
the
Wow.
military, and they so it's awareness for that cause. And then it says former homeless veteran shares his true life story at theguttergospel.com.
Mm.
And just kind of as a side story here, I was sitting having breakfast by myself the other day, and this gentleman in the table in front of me saw me wearing one of those shirts, and he turns to me and he starts up a conversation and says, "Excuse me, but my name is such and such, and I couldn't help but notice that you were a homeless veteran." And I said, "Yeah, that's true." And so he introduced himself as being the president on the board of directors for the biggest homeless shelter in Fargo Moorhead, where I live. And he asked me to come speak at their homeless shelter.
Wow.
So it's just little things like that in life where the reason I brought up the custom shirts is because it's all about awareness for the causes of people that still struggle with suicide and forgiveness and everything else. The hardest thing is forgiving yourself. You got to start
Mm.
there before
Yeah.
you can forgive other people.
Yeah.
So I had to learn to forgive myself and kind of go outward from there one at a time.
Wow. Oh, so we have just about 3 minutes to go. And I really want to give Mike the opportunity now to just remind people again, Mike, the social media places you spoke fondly about the Instagram page that you recently set up. What about your website or maybe your Facebook page? Where can they get that free copy of the book, and of course reach out to you concerning any help that you can help them with their struggles and their challenges, similar or not
Yeah.
similar to yours?
Yeah, exactly. So here it is again, guys. You go to theguttergospel.com and you scroll through the whole site. But down at the bottom of the homepage is where you can get your free copy of the book. And it's in a PDF, so you can scroll through it and go down to, like I mentioned before, page 70 through 75 if you want to read about the Sea of Tears. But it flows through the entire episode, or I'm sorry, the entire book just kind of takes you chapter by chapter through the whole thing. And then the Instagram account was Mike.Guttergospel. So you can message me on there, or you can, well, that's where I would direct you the most, rather than going through my website, because
Yeah.
that's I would get you on my social media so you can connect with me there, and I will get to all those messages as quick as I can, because that's the first thing I do after I get up and do my reading out of the Life Recovery Bible is I answer those Instagram messages, and then I do my podcast in the afternoon and evenings. So
Okay.
that's that's kind of the way my day is structured these days. So
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Mike. Gabriella, any closing comments? We just have about 2 minutes before we wrap up.
Yeah, I just want to thank Mike for being so open and vulnerable tonight. It really was a heartwarming message and story that you have faced and endured, but at the end of it, we thank you that you are here, and that God saved you and continue to have his grace over your life. And to those listening out there who may be struggling with suicidal thoughts, mental illness, drug addiction, alcoholism, just know that that's not the final say, and that doesn't define you, and there's hope in Jesus. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Gabriella. I'm just gonna salute our people in the audiences who made comments and stuff. Wesley and Anthony, and of course, the one with the dog.
Oh
Who could
Lord.
that
Oh
be?
my goodness. I wonder who that person is. Okay. So we're talking about Bernadine S. Wood. So we thank you so much, people, for your continued commitment and your support to this wonderful program. Tune in next week, God's willing, at 6:30 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time. I think that's concurrent now with Eastern Standard Time for another episode of Breaking Out of Depression. We'd ask Mike to hold on for a couple minutes so that he can have a small chat with our director. But it's 8 p.m. that at the top of the hour, we are saying so long, guys. Godspeed, God bless. Keep reaching for the best part of you that exists in your life. And remember that with God, all things are possible. Bernadine does have a sense of humor. She's wondering. I salute you, my dear sister. I salute you. I salute you. So until next time, this is Andy together with my guest, Mike
Gabriella
and
Woods.
Gabriela Wood. And next, so we are saying so long. And remember, keep doing all that you can to break out of depression.
Depression.
Bye for now, guys. Godspeed.
There ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord. No, ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord. No, ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord. No, ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord. Trouble in my way, but daily hear me say, ain't got no way, ain't got no way, ain't got no way, ain't got no way. The harvest is plenty, Lord, but the workers are so few. Ain't got no way I'm gonna make it.